The sound is something like this. Do you understand me?
I'd die if I were with a corpse and the corpse started doing that.
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Where are you from, Luis?
I'm from Peru.
Okay, and where do you work in funeral homes?
Let me tell you, my name is Luis Lackey. For all your followers, I'm a mortuary restoration specialist. Thanatopraxy, for people who don't know, I work in the reconstruction and preservation of corpses. That's my profession. I've been doing this for many years.
Okay, your work happens before a funeral.
Of course. In my case, it's before a funeral. I do makeup, which is called aesthetic thanatopraxy. Embalming, which is thanatopraxy reconstructions and absolutely all of that.
Before you tell me stories, I need to ask some interview questions. Is that okay?
Of course.
Not all bodies arrive in the same condition, I imagine. It's one thing when someone dies naturally in their bed while sleeping, and it's another thing when it's an accident victim.
Of course, it's totally different when the deceased or people who pass away at home or of natural causes, they are bodies that are very easy to work with, to preserve, since I don't have to do much more than introducing formaldehyde, which is the embalming fluid. It's a different case with accident victims where I have to do the reconstruction, the joining of certain parts, the suturing of some things, covering certain wounds with makeup. It's a much longer, more demanding job.
When a person dies naturally, let's use an example. I imagine you've had several like that in your career. An elderly person who dies in their sleep, what is the basic process?
Okay. First, before touching a body, you need to request a death certificate from a doctor who takes responsibility and certifies the death. After that, what comes next? The next thing is that they take them, or we bring them to the preparation room or prep room, where I place them on a metal table, on that table, which is metallic with drainage. The body is washed. They are washed.
Okay.
They are washed. They are prepared. They are dried, and thanatopraxy or preservation is performed. There are many ways to do it. The one I do is through the arteries. Formalin is introduced through the arteries. It can be the carotid artery or the femoral arteries, where we start to irrigate the whole body. With the liquid and through the veins, the red liquid begins to be removed so as not to mention the name.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and it's changed. 7 liters come out, 7 liters go in.
Okay.
We're done.
That product that's injected through the arteries is to preserve the body so it doesn't have an odor, right? Am I understanding correctly?
Correct, yes. It's called, well, it has several names because it's made by different labs, but the main liquid is formalin or formaldehyde.
Okay.
There are variations due to additives like formaldehyde, alcohol, and glycerin. For certain cases, for cavities, for arteries, there are many products, but the base is formaldehyde. Aside from doing that, draining the red fluid and introducing the formaldehyde, the chest and abdominal cavities are cleaned. This means that in the abdomen, the fluids have to be removed. All the liquid has to be removed from the abdomen, and that's done. If you have the machine, it's called a trocar, a type of rod, about 60 or 70 centimeters long, which works by suction. It has a tip, and through the navel, we could say it is inserted. By moving it in and out, you suction out all the fluids from the abdomen.
And is it filled with something?
No, it's not filled with anything. It's just cleaning of the thoracic and abdominal area.
Okay.
It's suctioning all of that out, right? All the fluids are removed. It can be through the large intestine, the intestines, the matter of absolutely everything. And because it has a tip, it's like blending it up from the inside.
I understand.
Because you're constantly going in and out. That's cleaning. You do it and remove everything. And also through the vein and the artery, you start to change, right?
Okay.
All the fluids too.
And is there any process done on the outside? I mean, the person's skin, the body, because the person is no longer there, right?
Of course, the makeup, the aesthetics, before doing that, when you come in, you make the change of, or you inject formalin, the skin becomes dry.
Of course.
It's less oily than yours. It becomes dry, that skin is ready to start applying makeup. You start applying makeup according to the photo that the family gives you. So I don't know, so you can make them look like they did in the photo, right? The eyebrows, the lips, the skin tone, absolutely everything, the hairstyle. The hair is dyed, the hairstyle is done. A lot of machines are used so that what the family sees in a coffin, well, it's something, well, not so shocking. It's like the person you knew in life, but just sleeping.
Okay.
No, that's the point you reach.
Okay, I'll ask one last thing before we move on to the supernatural stories. And the other case is a person who ended up taking their own life in a traumatic way. So you have to put together, I use these words to take away some of the drama, because if the person listening to us thinks that all of this is being done to their family member, you feel bad. The person is no longer there. What remains is the vehicle, the body, the shell. Let's pretend that the person had an accident and the shell broke, so you have to rebuild it, like you said.
Yes, you rebuild it until you have a complete body. And then comes the embalming, but embalming for a body like this is totally different. It's embalmed by insections. In the world of thanatopraxy, it's known as the 8-point embalming. This means that we inject formalin through the carotid arteries, because there are two on each side of your neck. There are arteries.
Yes.
Just as you have them on the left and right, you also have them in your armpit. An artery runs through your right arm, your left arm, down your leg. You have the femoral artery. It goes through your right leg and it goes through your left leg. So we start to inject formalin into each part of the body to preserve it. Because in an accident, as you mentioned, all arteries are destroyed. No connection remains.
Of course.
Because everything is separated. So you have to do it independently. That's called the 8-point embalming. That's why 8 arteries.
The only thing that matters at a funeral is the face, I imagine. Because after all, I mean, the rest can be covered. Of course, the rest can be covered. There's no need to reconstruct something that you don't have to show. It can be hidden.
Yes, there are different types of wakes. There are wakes where you only see the viewing window, showing just half the chest and the face, nothing else. And there are other types of wakes where the casket is open. I mean, you can see the body.
Of course.
You know, you see the whole body. There are coffins with a full lid. So you can see everything. And we always do the full reconstruction, absolutely everything. To put on the clothes, to do absolutely everything. If I only focus on the face, on embalming the face and not the rest will decompose.
Of course.
When it decomposes, it produces odors and it's not a proper wake, no.
Of course. Well, let's get back to our topic. Supernatural stories, paranormal stories at your job. Tell us, please.
Well, yes, I only have one to share with you. I don't have anything else to tell you as well. I've been working at a funeral home since I was 13 years old.
Is it a family business?
Currently, no. It was a summer job. It was January and a neighbor asked me if I wanted to work and I started working. And I started at 13 years old. I'm currently 34. That happened 21 years ago. But anyway, let me share this story with you. Look. When I started working, the first question that came to my mind was who would be the first person I was going to take care of, right? What would that first deceased person I have to carry be like? Since I only worked at night, I didn't work during the day. I'd go at night around 6 or 7:30 and leave at 8 in the morning, meaning I'd sleep at the funeral home.
Oh God.
Because I helped, who? The salespeople. Because the vendors would go out to offer funeral services and they would secure a funeral service, and well, I helped by carrying things, cleaning offices in the morning and leaving at 8. Well, the first person I got to take care of was a little girl, and I remember her perfectly. Just imagine a room of one, a small room, a bed, a wheelchair in one corner, an oxygen tank, hospital equipment, and the girl lying in bed. And so we came in with the coffin, we put her in the coffin, we took her to the funeral home. This happened at night. And the family decided to hold the wake the next day, and not at that moment. This means she stayed in the preparation room, and I stayed in the same funeral home, but in another area, right? Since back then I didn't do embalming, I was an assistant. Absolutely nothing strange happened to me that night. What happened to me was many days after taking care of that girl. I arrive at the funeral home at 6:30. It's open until 8 or 9 at night. I close the funeral home and I go buy my dinner. When I go out to buy dinner, I turn off the lights in the funeral home. You open the front door. You turn back inside. You briefly see the inside of the place you're leaving since you're about to close the door. The street light briefly lights up the inside, and as I'm about to close the door, I see the same girl I picked up.
Oh God?
There, right in front of me, I remember her perfectly, and it happened 21 years ago. Short hair down to her cheek, hospital gown. She was pale, very pale. Her arms, but I didn't see her legs. The gown reached about knee level, maybe a little lower. Look, but I didn't see anything below. At least I don't remember seeing it. I was petrified. Something really strange is that I wasn't scared. Absolutely not scared at all. I just looked at her. We looked at each other, and I noticed it was about 3 seconds. I blinked and she disappeared. What I did was close the door really slowly. I closed it and I went to buy my dinner, thinking the whole way about whether I had really seen it, whether what I saw was real. It was a shadow. The lights played a trick on me. I didn't understand what I had seen, and I left. I bought my dinner but had to go back because I slept at the funeral home. So I opened the door, I turned on the lights, and I stayed there to sleep. Absolutely nothing happened to me that night. Nothing happened to me, absolutely nothing. The strange part came in the days that followed. In the mornings, I used to clean the offices, and I would leave the brooms, the mops, the water ready, to clean the next day. If I left something in a corner, it would show up elsewhere the next day. Things started to move around. They started making noises, and it went on like that for many years until we left that house, which belonged to the owners of the funeral home. We left that place for another one that was bigger, to rent a much bigger space. But that house, which was right in the city center, they rented it out for an optical shop. And I went to that optical shop many years later, to get my glasses made. I asked the owner if she knew what this was before. She said, yes, it used to be a funeral home. I asked if everything was okay or if something was wrong. She replied, yes, there's a little girl here.
Whoa.
I asked, how do you know there's a girl? He tells me what happens is that we cut the lenses with water pressure, like a water gun. We cut the eyeglass lenses before delivering them. And there's a valve to open and close. So they close that valve when it needs to be opened, and they open it when it's closed. They move things, play pranks, and I know it's a little girl because I've seen something. Personally, since I'm always here, it's become very normal for me that things like this happen. Except for the new people who come in, who get scared and quit their jobs at the optical shop. So after so many years, the girl is still in that place. I mean, she's still there. It used to be a funeral home, now it's an optician's, but she's still in that place. In my line of work, you might think that these kinds of things happen to me a lot, but that's not the case for me. I only have this little story that I witnessed myself because it happened to me. When people ask if I believe in ghosts, I say yes because I've seen one. And besides this, I only have stories of accidents, of bodies, of reconstructions, of a lot of that kind of thing, which is part of my job.
Listen, that's a great story, but I want to get back to your job. And when you're face to face with the body, colleagues of yours from Argentina have told me that they talk to the corpse, that they ask for permission. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, it's something very common among funeral workers, among the handlers, that when they get very stiff, we talk to them, we start to have a conversation with them, so to speak. Juan, Don Juan, look, I want to get you dressed, but you're not letting me, and your family is outside suffering. I need to do this because I need you to be with your family. Your family is outside, and I can't move forward if you act like this. Allow me to do my job so your family doesn't suffer so much outside. Like that, things like that, that's what you say? And I don't know what it was or is, but the bodies start to loosen up. It's something very common in funeral homes. Some say it doesn't happen, and they could be right. Some people do it the way I do, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it's just obviously the experience you have in doing arm exercises to loosen them up.
Of course.
And those things, but it exists.
Oh, you're such a great storyteller. That's why I keep asking you more questions, okay? Is there any truth to the sounds of death, the sounds dead bodies make?
Yes, bodies emit or produce gases from bacteria when someone dies. In the stomach, they start to swell, and obviously that gas has to come out somewhere. Generally, they come out through the trachea, the larynx, or the esophagus. The vocal cords are loose.
They're still active. I mean, they're still vibrating.
obviously. And so the sounds that come out, I'll give you an example, something bad, something that happens to me. The sound is like what I'm about to do now. Okay? The sound is something like this. Do you understand me?
I'd die if I were with a corpse and the corpse started doing that.
That's the sound.
How do you keep yourself from getting scared?
No, because I know why it does that or why that happens.
Of course.
What happens is that the gases obviously come out through the trachea. If I'm changing him, I feel it briefly. I feel it when I'm putting on his shirt, his t-shirt, his blouse. So when you sit down, you put pressure on the stomach.
Of course.
When you put pressure, it comes out. Sound comes through the trachea if you haven't put cotton in it. In some cases, there are families who tell me I want to be present when they're changing or working on
No?
my family member.
How morbid you are.
I don't know if it's morbid, but they're there. I have no problem with it. I tell them, just stand in a corner, but let me do my job. They say, no problem, but when those sounds occur, they run off. He's alive, they shout. Mom, he's alive, he just shouted. And my family comes over to be with me asking what happened. And I say, no, it was just a sound, nothing else. But he shouted, it's not a shout. I'll explain to you. Come here, and I put my hand on top of the abdomen. No, on the abdomen, and I press down. And the body starts to do this every time I press.
Of course.
Right, damn. I thought he was alive. No, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it makes sense. There's an explanation. That's why I don't get scared. I know what that is. It hasn't happened to me that the body has screamed because, I don't know, just because my body itself wants to scream. It doesn't happen. There is a disease that is, yes, it is scientifically proven, which is catalepsy or locked-in syndrome. Catalepsy or locked-in syndrome is when your vital signs drop to such a level that your heartbeat, your breathing can't even be noticed, and there's no machine that can detect it. But your brain keeps working. You hear if your eyes are open, you see, you feel. Locked-in syndrome is so dangerous that if by any chance during an autopsy in a morgue or during preservation, catalepsy ends and you regain your senses, the body is going to scream, obviously.
Of course.
But if the person going through that doesn't react, they're going to feel it because catalepsy doesn't cut off the brain's ability to feel pain. Your vital signs just drop so much.
Of course.
It's a recognized medical condition which is scientifically proven to exist, which is catalepsy. The kids can look up catalepsy or locked-in syndrome. And that's exactly why there's also a very common phrase that goes, saved by the bell.
Of course.
I don't know if you heard, but that's exactly why it happened.
In fact, in Argentina, there's a very famous case, which is Rufina Cambaceres, who asked to be buried with a device that allowed her to ring a bell if she woke up inside of
Exactly.
the coffin.
Yes, that's not new. It goes way back. Actually, the first thing that was recorded was in England about 400 years ago or even earlier, where the bodies were not embalmed. So they would bury them and put a little bell on them, tying it to their hand in case they came back to life.
Of course.
And they would move the little bell and it would ring and the gravedigger would go and dig them up, right? That's where the phrase saved by the bell comes from.
Let me ask you one last question, Luis. It's a pleasure to meet you. And honestly, I think we're having a great interview beyond the show itself, so that people can find out what this world is like behind the scenes of funerals, behind everything that's done when their physical existence ends. But the last question is personal. And do you know what you want to happen with your body?
No one has ever asked me that. You're the first, and I've done many interviews, including on YouTube channels. The creators of that content, they never asked me that. What if you put it to me like that right now? No. It's something to think about, that I want them to do with my body whatever my children wish, or even more. Whatever they want, obviously, when I have them, because I don't have children yet, but when I do and I pass away, whatever they want. No, the body is just a vessel for a person's essence. It's only the vessel. And when we come to rest, well, you just have to accept whatever those left decide to do with you. There's nothing else.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Luis. Thanks for the conversation.
All right. Thank you very much for having me so I can share a bit of my story with your audience and also tell them that I always upload content about what happens inside my prep room. I try to explain things to them in a certain way. What my job is, how it's done, what happens, what doesn't happen. I have to tell you with great sadness that I had a channel with just as many followers and TikTok took it down because of their rules.
No.
I had nearly 300,000 followers and they removed it. And now I'm starting from scratch again, just recently, obviously trying to get back to where I was. But now with more caution with certain things, on other social networks, obviously you can speak much more openly. But on TikTok, it's very, very sensitive and you have to know how to say things. So the nice stuff is there on my channel. If you want to visit it, I'd be very grateful. There you can find a lot of information about my work. If you go to my new social media accounts, there are videos that aren't on TikTok because of the content. You can find me as Luis Lequitanatopractor. It's a pleasure. If you come from the channel La Academia Amigo and want to ask me something in any of my videos, just tell me you came from La Academia Amigo and I'll immediately make a video response for you all with much affection.
Luis Lequitanatopractor, that's how they look you up.
Exactly, on all social media platforms.
Thank you, Luis. A big hug.
A hug for you all. Thank you very much.
Bye. Good night. Impressive. Impressive, and I don't know if the same thing happens to you. It's curiosity, the desire to keep listening, but also amazement, right? I think it happens to all of us when we hear about these topics. It's like you're on a roller coaster of emotions, right?